Morning, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I want to welcome, I see students here, staff, faculty. It's great to have Chancellor Williams and his staff here. Because of Chancellor Williams' remarks later in the town hall, we've had an expanded version of town hall. We'll have another one on October 14th. Just remember, as you hear things, write down your questions, and we'll get them over to Yolanda. So let me begin with some good news, very recent good news. Money Magazine, in its latest Best College rankings on Best Value Universities and Colleges, ranked UNT Dallas 5th in Texas with Rice, Texas A&M, UT Austin, and UT Rio Grande Valley. Just yesterday, our own Jeff Spivey, the executive director of the Cruth Police Institute, had an audience with Senator Cornyn to discuss the UNT Dallas-led first statewide network to address the growing tide of first responder suicides. Texas has led the nation 5 of the last 6 years, and UNT Dallas asked the question, who's doing anything about it? No one was, and we helped get a bill through the legislature last time, and we, along with the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, are standing up these hubs around the state, including North Texas. We'll talk more about the network at our October 14th town hall. We're also planning a press conference on campus on September 8th to discuss what we're doing here as part of the National Suicide Prevention Week. As we speak, CBS News out of New York is filming our monthly North Texas Food Bank distribution. And I want to thank Aronia King for taking the lead on organizing the distribution. I also want to thank everybody who had any part in setting up this beautiful display today, ECI for our wonderful breakfast. I know on my staff, Angie and Angelica have done a lot here, so thank you. I would also like to introduce 2 new members of our leadership team, Dr. Macario Hernandez and Dr. Milan Savak. Macario, could you just wave out there? I think everybody's learning. Macario's our first ever. He's our first ever chief of staff. We had a nationwide search. We had tremendous response. He is, for those of you who don't know, one of the leaders in the local Hispanic community. He was one of 300 blue ribbon principals last year in America. He led Trinity Garza Collegiate Academy for many years. He grew up in Oak Cliff, went to UNT, got his graduate degree at TWU, Texas Women's, and his PhD at the University of Texas. Milan Savak, Dr. Savak, there you are, is our inaugural executive director of our Center for Socioeconomic Mobility Through Education. As Dr. Stewart likes to say, the center is an embodiment of our vision to be a pathway for economic mobility for our students. He comes to us from the, he taught in the PhD program, ED program at the Simmons School at SMU, where he had been for several years. He has unique experience. One of the things that appealed to me and Dr. Stewart was he also had very responsible jobs in the Chicago School District, the Dallas School District, and the Austin School District. You don't find that academic pre-K to 12 experience very often. and his credentials are outstanding. University of Chicago undergraduate, Northwestern MBA, and a doctorate from Harvard. So welcome, Macario and Milan. In a few minutes, you'll hear a brief summary of the week's strategic planning session. Our steering committee met on Wednesday, and by all regards that I've heard, it was extremely positive, constructive session. And you'll hear more about the plan in more detail in the coming weeks. Dr. Michael Williams' timing today for our town hall couldn't be better, because our intent is to sync up our 5-year strategic plan, our first 5-year strategic plan, with his vision for the UNT system. You'll hear more about that, a little bit more about that from me later, a couple minutes, and then he'll have your attention later in the program. We construct our strategic plans to help us see around the corner of time and space. Each of us knows instinctively that to make changes, we have to plan and execute to the best of our abilities. I've been here 7 years now, passed it on August 1st. And from the beginning of my time here, we've worked together to stress that we can't just talk about planning. We have to execute. I know some of you hate to hear it relentlessly from me, but it takes bulldozers to move dirt, not talk. And you're all driving bulldozers, I know that. We're blessed to exist in one of the world's greatest growth markets. There would be 9 million North Texans by 2030. That's the estimate. There are no excuses for us not to grow in this environment. Our 6-year streak of rising fall enrollments, 12 of the last 14 semesters of growth, will be broken this semester. So we have work to do to get back on track. When CFO Bradford outlines the fiscal year 23 budget, you will see it as tight and conservative, rightfully so. We have a strong plan to meet the 88th legislative session that begins in January. We had North Texas College and University's strongest session in the 87th, and we intend to build on that success. We've worked closely with our friends at the system, Ray Rodriguez and Liz Bolin, Emily Deerdorf at our Government Relations office in Austin. It's been a great team effort with our finance and accounting. So I think we're going to be ready. I believe, as they have in the last 2 sessions, the legislature will support our powerful mission. Soon we will break ground on our $100 million STEM building. Teamwork between system planning and facilities and the UNT Dallas team, particularly Dr. Betty Stewart and the professors and our STEM programs, have done a great job putting this building on a solid trajectory. I don't think I have to tell you, our dream is to make this building a transformational opportunity for UNT Dallas students and students to come to be well prepared, because this isn't a research building, this is a training building. We want our students to be prepared to go out into high-need healthcare fields that are hungry for diverse and highly trained graduates like those that come out of UNT Dallas. UNT Dallas exists for many important and honorable reasons. Most significantly, we provide a pathway to upward economic mobility for those who persist and graduate. Our grads, our university, do the best in North Texas, increasing upward mobility for graduates. Most of you saw the Inside Higher Education article a couple weeks ago. It cited a comprehensive national study on this subject of upward mobility, where UNT Dallas ranked 15 out of 1,300 colleges and universities in America for promoting upward economic mobility. You'll hear from Dr. Monica Williams in a few minutes that we had a record year of grant awards. And I'm feeling the same momentum for the next year. It's a testament to the faith funders have in our mission and in our future. They also realize that we are now one of the most important and certainly largest employers in Southern Dallas County. And they realize, as numerous press accounts have said this summer, if economic growth, which is deeply needed in Southern Dallas and Dallas County, if economic growth is going to occur, UNT Dallas will be its catalyst, and the growth will likely occur in and around our campus. We all know that we are a work in progress. We are the classic example of a work in progress. All you have to do is look at our master plan and how it proceeds all the way up to us having 25,000 students. Science building is underway. We hope to bring it online in fiscal year 25-26. We desperately need a large and new residence hall. We need a large new dining hall. Ideally, the dining hall, the residence hall, and the science building would come online simultaneously. We need an event center. A lot of us are out talking to potential donors now. The world's greatest stadium architect has been working with us to help us envision what this event center might look like on the right scale for us. He designed the $5 billion Sophie Center in Los Angeles, so he understands what gargantuan looks like, but he understands what we're trying to do. We want a business school building. It's our fastest growing department in the last few years. And so we're starting the same, predicate that we worked the legislature with several years ago on the science building. And we're working with the community to bring a new police academy here. We can't do it all at once, as much as we'd like to. That's why planning, staging, sequencing, planning some more is so important. I also want to stress how important it is to sync all of our strategic efforts with that of Chancellor Williams' vision of a value-based enterprise system. He, like us, want to channel the collective resources of the UNT system in ways that we have not achieved before. Together, we are stronger than our individual parts. I hope you've read Chancellor Williams' memo from yesterday, in which he said, we are one team, working together and serving others with a high level of excellence in all that we do. Thank you, Dr. Stewart.
Good morning. Can you all hear me? It's so good to see your faces again. It's been a while since we've seen this many faces not covered with masks. I'd like to start by welcoming our new faculty on the Dallas campus. I'll just call names. If you're here, great. If you're here, wave. If you're not, I just want to introduce you. Dr. Mohammed Adil, Assistant Professor in Information Technology. Dr. Crystal Benjamin, Lecturer, Child Development and Family Studies. Dr. William Burge, Lecturer, Business Management, Organization, and HR. Dr. Janice Carter Stewart, Lecturer, Marketing. Ms. Sarah Cho, Lecturer, English. Dr. Alex Colvin, Associate Professor and Chair, Undergraduate Programs in the School of Behavioral Health and Human Services. Dr. Candace Kowalski Delaney, Visiting Lecturer in Psychology. Ms. Joy Oliveira, Visiting Lecturer, Counseling. Dr. Jaime Ramos, Assistant Professor, Business Analytics. And Dr. Faranak Zarnani, Visiting Lecturer, Physics. Welcome. Next slide, please. I'd like to welcome our new staff on the Dallas campus. Ms. Phoebe Applin, Director, Community Youth Development. Ms. Cassandra Carter, Upward Bound Administrative Coordinator. Mr. Hector Govea, Registrar. Ms. Gabrielle Lee, Program Manager, Community Youth Development. Ms. Candelaria Knight, Project Coordinator, TRIO Program. Ms. LaTanya Anderson Davis, Student Engagement and Professional Development Coordinator in the Graduate School. Ms. Emily Wanick, Teacher Certification and Accountability Officer. Welcome. Next slide, please. I'd like to introduce our new faculty at the College of Law. Ariel May, Professor of Practice. Rebecca Warren, Professor of Practice. Natalie Brandt, Visiting Professor of Law. Desiree Slaybaugh, Visiting Professor of Law. Wes Moore, Visiting Professor of Law. Welcome. Next slide, please. Ms. Sherilyn Hurst, Assistant Dean for Admissions and Scholarship. Welcome. And Ms. Deborah Taylor, Business Operations Manager. Next slide, please. I want to celebrate something significant on the Dallas campus. This summer, 6 of our students participated in summer abroad. They studied in Rome and Barcelona. The 2 pictures that you see are in Italy. I see the Trevi Fountain and the Colosseum. And now every time I think about those, I'll think about Evelyn on the left and Nino on the right. We're so excited. Next slide, please. We also had 4 students who studied in Barcelona. Madison Alexander, Ataya McKnight, Imani Florence, and Kiara Kroom. Madison, whose picture you see on the screen, was awarded the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship. This is from the State Department. This is exciting for her because it was a $5,000 scholarship to help cover her summer studies in Barcelona. Congratulations. Next slide, please. So now I really want to reach out to students and faculty alike as we talk about what's going to happen next week in terms of classes. So students who are taking in-person classes should report to class on the first day. Please report to class on the first day. Students who are taking Canvas classes will begin online on the first day. But students, you will not have access to the Canvas work until the first day of class, which is Monday. Actually, Sunday night at midnight, 12:01, but I'm going to say Monday you'll have access to Canvas. Syllabi for all of the classes will be available on the first day of class, and they should be posted online by the end of the first week of classes. Next slide, please. If you have any questions about important dates for the semester, our official academic calendar and the final exam schedule is posted on the Registrar Office's webpage. Please refer to that page for important dates throughout the semester. And for the students, the faculty are your advocates and they are your contact persons for any of your classes. So if you have any questions, please contact your faculty via email or phone. Next slide. And to the faculty who are teaching 1,000 and 2,000 level classes, don't forget this is very important for our retention efforts. If you're teaching 1,000 and 2,000 level classes, please submit midterm grades. This will help us in our efforts toward retention. Thank you. Next slide, please. I didn't want to sit down without telling you what's on my mind, some of my priorities for this year. So I just want to share just a snapshot of what's in my mind, but I think these are very important. So in terms of our new STEM building, our architects have been selected. I think you'll be very pleased with the group that we've chosen. And planning and designing of the building will begin this fall, where there will be a large number of small group meetings where we will be asking students, faculty, staff, and the community what they'd like to see in this new facility. So if you're called upon to participate in these small group meetings, please plan to do so if at all possible. For our non-tenure track faculty, paramount in my mind is getting our non-tenure track policy up and running this year. This policy will provide a career path for our lecturers and will also give me an opportunity to revise the service opportunities for lecturers so that you will know other opportunities that are available to you apart from what the tenure track faculty are doing. So that is a high priority for me. One of the things we started working on this summer is exploring joint degree graduate programs with the Health Science Center. Two schools in particular we want to target are the School of Behavioral Health and Human Services and our School of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Provost Taylor at the Health Science Center and I will be meeting with small groups of faculty along with the deans to talk about joint graduate programs. To our faculty, before you think this is going to be another burden for you, the plan is to make it a joint program because they have expertise sitting on their campus that we could use to fill out degrees here. And so we can now add to our list of majors within the curriculum. So we're going to take advantage of the expertise that they have, but we're going to build some great majors for our students here at the university. We've already started talks and we will continue those. And finally, making sure that we have the appropriate academic priorities in our 5-year strategic plan. This is a very important point for us to make sure that UNT Dallas, which is known for a lot of things, but will also be known for the academics that we produce at this university. So this is going to be a high priority for me. And my last slide is just to remind you that we have commencement this year on a weekday. It's Wednesday, December 14th. It's going to be at the Texas Trust Credit Union Theater in Grand Prairie. And this is significant for you because we will have our next 4 graduations at this site. And we wanted to make sure that you know what's happening. We will have 2 graduations in the morning. We will have business and education students. And in the afternoon, liberal arts and sciences and behavioral health and human services. Faculty representing those schools are expected to participate at the time that their students are graduating. I want to thank you all for your time this morning, and that's all I have to share.
Good morning, Trailblazers. Let's try that again. Good morning, Trailblazers. Excellent. Very good. Next slide, please. One more. Here is a quick look at our FY22 forecast. As you can see there, for revenues, we are predicting that we will finish this fiscal year around $90 million, which is about $3 million less than budget. If you look over to the right to see the expenses, we're expected to finish the year just short of that at $89.2 million, which is $3.6 million below budget. The bottom of the screen there, you see the little dotted box around the month of July. We're predicting to finish the year around $800,000 in the black. We think that number will hold through the end of the year. And so we're really excited to once again report that we will finish the year in the black. So next slide, please. One more. All right, here's a look at the process for our FY23 budget. I won't drain the entire slide here, but what I will share with you is that we started the budget process under the assumption that we would come in flat in enrollment growth for next year. And so that was our jumping off point. And we iterated the budget with our budget managers, and we had the budget committee meet and review strategic initiatives. And then at that point, when we rolled things up, we realized that that assumption of holding our budget or our enrollment growth flat for next year was not a good assumption. In fact, we were trending down. And so we had to retoggle our revenue assumptions and our related expense assumptions. And that was what we ended the lock with for FY23. So let's talk specifics here. Let's go to the next slide, please. Here are some of the key assumptions. As you can see in the upper left, we are assuming to be down 4.1% in heads, 3.8% in creds. And you can see how that splits between the different classifications there. Our fee revenue also adjusted down accordingly. We did decide to hold our institutional scholarships dollar budget flat to last year, and that was very intentional. We have no plans to tap into our reserves unless it's absolutely necessary. And unfortunately, we are not able to fund merit increase nor our strategic investments. We will, however, if the enrollment growth improves throughout the year, we will reassess that and come back to you with the response. Looking at the right side, you can see a list of risks and opportunities. I will call out a couple of the risks there. If you see the enrollment risk, that is actually both a risk and an opportunity, because I'm pretty confident that we're going to come in better than the enrollment assumptions that you see on the upper left there. And so it's both a risk and opportunity for us. Also, there is no contingency built into this budget. So there is no wiggle room. I shared with the regents last week. If you know the game Jenga, I'm assuming everybody does, that the slightest movement can cause us to wobble. And we don't want that to happen. And so we're going to be hyper-focused on making sure that we deliver what we set out for this year. Next slide, please. Here are our revenue numbers for next year. So total revenues are budgeted to be $85 million, which is 9.1% or $8.5 million below the current year budget of $93.1 million. And this is 6.5% or $5.6 million below the current year forecast of $90.5 million. If we take out the COVID dollars that we received in FY22 this year of about $4 million, we will actually be up from a budget perspective for next year. So that's a point I wanted to make there. Next slide, please. Looking at our expenditures, you can see the different comments there, but we're expected to come in $85.0 million, which is $8.9 million or $8.2 million below the current year budget of $92.8 million, and that's 5.7% or $5.1 million below the current year forecast. Even with the decreased enrollment, we're still making some investments in personnel with new faculty, staff positions, and we will continue to fund, like we did last year, living wage for some of our staff members, and so that is built into the budget. Maintenance and operations, we're budgeting a decrease, and actually that's one of the areas that we had to pull pretty hard on in order to make this budget balance for the year. Scholarships, exemptions, and financial aid, we're budgeting a decrease there, and a lot of that decrease is related to the COVID dollars not carrying forward this year. On the previous slide, you noticed that there was a decline in revenue of about 9.1% versus the current year budget. That's 24 basis points faster than the decline in expenses. That is not a sustainable proposition. You never want your revenues to decrease faster than your expenses, and you never want your expenses to increase faster than your revenues. So that's not a sustainable proposition. We understand that, but we will, as I mentioned earlier, be super hyper-focused on delivering the budget for the year. At the end of the day, we are building a balanced budget. It is going to be extremely, extremely difficult, which takes me to the next slide. Next slide, please. So here are some things that we need to do in order to deliver the budget for the year. We talked about enrollment, and that is both an opportunity as well as a risk for us. I think it's going to be an opportunity for us. Effective immediately, we are instituting a hiring freeze. And in order to unfreeze a particular position, it will require the approval of President Mong and myself. As I mentioned earlier, we are not funding any merit increases or one-time bonuses. However, again, mid-year, we will reassess that and come back to you with a strong possibility that we will do something mid-year. Looking at travel, this is where I really need your help. It is essential travel only. So I ask that you plan ahead so that we can get the best rates. The same goes for training, essential training only. We talked earlier about the budget committee. We're not able to fund the strategic initiative requests out the gate. However, again, mid-year we will reassess that. Other discretionary spend, the good, better, best, scratch out best. We have to be extremely diligent and manage our dollars accordingly. And the last thing on the page there is that we will be monitoring every single dollar closely. And I will ask that you and your budget managers do the same thing. This is a very, very difficult budget to pencil, but I am super confident. I've seen this in my past before. In fact, in 2008, when I was at Walmart, we put together our budget. The economy collapsed, and we had to throw the budget away, start over again. This is not that, but I am used to this kind of budget, and again, I am extremely confident that the folks in the room here and online and otherwise will be able to deliver these numbers here. With that, I will hand it over to Vice President Stephanie Hawley, Student Access and Success.
Thank you, Arthur. Good morning, everyone. I would like to start with a welcome to our new staff, and we have quite a few of them. So if you're here, please wave. You can also stand if you'd like to stand. You may. In my office, I'd just like to point out real quickly, Angela Vega is with, in my office with me, supporting me in Megan's departure. So if you need anything, please holler at Angela. She's about the most precious person you'll ever meet. All right, for academic advising and student success, I'd like to welcome Kiana Wakefield, testing assistant, Sam Ramirez, TSI coordinator, Kimberly Williams, testing coordinator, and Dr. Taj Cobbs, academic advising coordinator. Next slide, please. In undergraduate admissions, I'd like to welcome Janet Gomez, admissions processor, Jalen Grimes, freshman admissions counselor, Maria Mendoza, transfer admissions counselor, Walter Pender, freshman admissions counselor, and Jazz Rylander, senior freshman admissions counselor. Next slide, please. In student affairs, I'd like to welcome Joe Posada. Many of you all know Joe. He's returned to us. We're excited about that. As Director of Underserved Student Services. You'll see another familiar name here. Dee Goines has graciously offered to serve as the Interim Director of Residence Life and Housing, and he will be in that interim role until we find a new director. John Rios, Assistant Director for Housing and Residence Life. Malik Oliver, Coordinator of the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life. Jeremy Hill, Coordinator for Intramural Sports Programs. Patty Jones, Administrative Coordinator for Student Engagement. Welcome to all of our new team members. We're so thrilled to have you. Next slide, please. So I'd like to go over enrollment for summer, just how we landed there, and then we'll talk a little bit about fall. University overall, we were down 3% in head count, 3% in semester credit hours. You'll see undergraduate was flat, master's overall down 2, college down 23, College of Law down 23%. But I would like to highlight the Behavioral Health and Human Services School. They were up 16% this summer. Liberal Arts and Sciences was up 5% this summer. And many of our departments were up in their summer enrollment. Too many to list here, but you can see them on an enrollment report, and we had lots that were definitely performing better than last summer. Next slide, please. Enrollment fall 22. I want to apologize to the Chancellor. It seems every time he visits, we're reporting something a little negative in enrollment. So we are going to get that back on track, Chancellor, I promise. University overall, we were down. This is the report from 8/17, so it's a couple of days old, but we're generally in the same area. We are down 8%. That was about 303 students in head count, down 7% in semester credit hours. Undergraduate overall is down about 259 students. Most of those are in our current student population and our transfer population. You'll see that a little lower on the slide. Masters overall, we're down about 44 students. College of Law overall is flat. And first time in college is definitely our bright spot. They're up 27%, which is equivalent to about 67 students. So we're really excited for that new group to join us. And then our new transfers are down about 127 students. Our continuing undergrad is down about 182 students. I'd like to just quickly tell you about some of the activities that have been going on around enrollment, and then I'm going to invite Dr. De Silva up. So we just finished our orientation season on Wednesday night. It was a very successful season, and we really appreciate the collaboration across the divisions. For those that participated with us, thank you. We've done drop-in, group, virtual, and in-person opportunities to be advised and registered. We've run enrollment campaigns with thousands of emails, text messages, and calls. We've also had virtual enrollment fairs, multiple of those throughout the summer, where students can just pop in virtually on the platform and get help in any of the areas they need. We've hosted late night appointments on Thursday evenings. The Student Solutions Center has been open in person and virtually all throughout. And as always, we're going to be here on Saturday, which I think is tomorrow, our Saturday before school starts, so that we can help students dropping in and virtually with their last minute needs to get ready for school. And then we have teams right now from Academic Affairs, from the Business Division, from Student Access and Success, who have been working together on a strategic enrollment management committee. And Dr. De Silva is coming up next to share information about their work. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I feel like this is like the fourth time you all have said that. So I do not have slides. I figured today we can just have a conversation. About 2 months ago, President Mong established a Strategic Enrollment Management Committee. That committee is representative of about 15 people, representation, as Stephanie mentioned, from Student Access and Success, from Academic Affairs, from Business and Administration, as well as the Advancement Division. Specifically, there were 2 charges that President Mong gave to that Enrollment Management Committee. The first one is, in light of our enrollment challenges, do any and everything that we possibly can to impact our fall enrollment. And that's the first one. The second one was to develop and implement a strategic enrollment management plan. So I'm going to talk a little bit about both of those just for a second. As it relates to the first charge, I can definitely say the committee hit the ground running. First, I want to recognize the co-chair, my co-chair for the Enrollment Management Committee, Dr. Ali Shockley. This, again, was there. Again, this was very intentional. President Mong wanted to make sure that collaboration between all divisions were at an all-time high. And so I've really appreciated working with Ali, or Dr. Shockley, through this process. Since we hit the ground running, we have had several efforts to increase enrollment, from call-a-thons to school-specific registration fairs, to assisting our admissions office with recruitment efforts to send people to community events, to high school fairs, and hopefully in hopes that we can bring as many students in as we possibly can. Now, considering how close we are to the start of the fall semester, today we again have a Strategic Enrollment Management Committee, actually right after the town hall, and we are going to start shifting gears. We're going to start shifting gears to begin the development of a Strategic Enrollment Management Plan, which is very timely because, as you all know, we're currently in the process of developing our 5-year strategic plan for the university. And so these 2 plans will literally go hand in glove with one another to support each other. Now, for those of you who may not know my history or my background, I've worked in higher education in Florida, in Texas, in Washington State, and most recently in Illinois. At every institution that I've worked at, the common denominator that I have seen is that for enrollment management efforts to be successful, collaboration has to continue to occur. And so as we start the development process for our strategic enrollment management plan, we will need you. We will need your help. Right now, again, the Strategic Enrollment Management Committee is a team of 15 people. We will be developing subcommittees, so one specifically focusing on recruitment efforts, another one focusing on retention efforts, another one focusing on completion, so graduation, transfer to graduate programs, and job attainment. And so if you are interested in serving in any of these committees, if you are interested in actively participating in our strategic enrollment management efforts, I'm asking you, I'm begging you, please send me an email. We would be more than happy to have your expertise as part of this process. The reality is this: we have to recognize that enrollment is not just one area's responsibility. It's all of our responsibility. Ideally, we are all enrollment strategists, enrollment experts. We all focus on enrollment. When you go to the grocery store and you're wearing a UNT Dallas shirt, I don't know if you've had this experience where I would call prospective student asks you about UNT Dallas. When you go to the doctor's office and they ask you, oh, what do you do? And you talk about UNT Dallas. Oftentimes that conversation follows with, well, you know, I've been thinking about going to college. I've been thinking about going to a university. Those there are key opportunities. And so, again, I ask if you're interested in joining the Strategic Enrollment Management Committee, please send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to have further conversations with you about that. Now, I'm going to shift gears a little bit because I've also been asked to provide an update to our strategic enrollment or our strategic plan for the university. I am one of the co-chairs for the Strategic Planning Committee. First, I'd like to recognize my other co-chairs, Drs. Marco Shapek and Dr. Julie Sadiq, right there. I'd also like to take this opportunity to recognize 3 additional individuals who have just gone above and beyond in everything that they do through this planning process, and that is Arthur Bradford, Amber Stowe. I know that she's not here today, but I'd still like to recognize her, and Dr. Kim Chandler. They are part of the Strategic Planning Committee. Overall, that committee consists of 35 individuals. Now, if you all recall, towards the end of the spring semester, we had several SOAR listening sessions, which I believe many, if not all of you, were part of. Overall, we held over 20 listening sessions specific to faculty, adjunct and full-time, staff, administrators, and community students and community members. Through that process, we also pulled together several data reports on who our students are, our enrollment trends, the demands, current and future demands of our communities, as well as who our students will likely be in 5 years from now. Again, we want to make sure that we are ready to serve those students. Through that work, President Mong mentioned earlier this week, we held a strategic planning retreat where those 35 committee members were pretty much in a room all day, and we dug deep. We dug deep into the data, into all of the input that you provided. And through a review of the culmination of all of those data reports, I'm happy to share that the 35-member committee came to a consensus on what our goals or strategies for the next 5 years ought to be. Now, I know you all are very excited to hear what those are. Unfortunately, I won't be sharing them today. In the next couple of weeks, we are going to be, the core team is going to be meeting with President Mong, and we're going to be sharing a report as a result of the strategic plan. Following that meeting, we will then schedule a meeting with the entire university committee or community. Again, when we did the kickoff event, we invited faculty, staff, students, administrators, and we did a large kickoff event for the strategic planning process. We will have another one of those, and at that meeting, we will be sharing our goals for the next 5 years. And so please be on the lookout for more information to come. Thank you so much, and now I'd like to invite Dr. Monica Williams. Thank you.
If someone had told me that 55 was going to bring needing a personal crutch, then I wouldn't have believed them. But, well, good morning, everyone. And it's so good to see everyone this morning. I just have a few really exciting updates from the Division of University Advancement. And I'd just first like to say that we've had a record-breaking year in university advancement, starting with our grant awards. I can't say enough about Dr. Alicia Brosset, Colette Taylor, Janet Burton. They've been amazing. They have really come out swinging this year. We've had success, enormous success, and I'll share a little bit towards the end of my remarks, some hot off the press news that we just received this morning. But because of the success, we've been able to create a position to support Dr. Brosset and her work. Lisa Fields, I know you're here this morning. I just want to acknowledge Lisa, who's come to us from Prairie View A&M University. She worked in the office of the president. She's been there for over the last decade and just done some amazing things, including work around international programming, brought the first international program to Prairie View. And we've been working about 2 years to try to bring Lisa here, so I couldn't be more pleased that she's with us. She's a native Dallasite and has spent an enormous time working in other areas, particularly at DART and some other places of high note. So we're very grateful that Lisa's here. Our work in alumni engagement has certainly improved because we now have, in addition to Derek on his staff, Tiffany Talamantis, and I think many of you knew that Tiffany was joining us from Student Access and Success. So thank you, Stephanie. I'm sorry, but we have loved Tiffany. She's come out and really helped us to organize our efforts around alumni engagement. And we are happy to share that we're in our third survey process with our alumni, and the alumni responded overwhelmingly this year to our survey, and we've had more respondents than we've ever had, so we're really anxious to see what the results are from the alumni survey in our partnership with Cicero. Marketing and communications is really getting the word out. Many of you have seen the coverage over the summer, which is really kind of unusual for higher ed, but because of our Conrad program, and that's Dr. Sabrina Hodge leads, it's Senator West's Conrad Leadership Program, as well as our Trailblazer Elite program and our Mayor's Summer Internship Program that Cynthia Perez has been leading. We have gotten some amazing coverage and are excited to see all that is ahead. And for the very first time, the mayor's office and Mayor Johnson reached out to me and said that they would like to host what he's calling the Summer of safety celebration, and it's really concentrating on it's everyone's responsibility to keep Dallas safe. So a safer, better Dallas. We're going to host a really big event on campus on August the 27th from 9 to 1. That's a Saturday. So if you and your families don't have plans on Saturday the 27th, come out and see the mayor and his team. I have planned a lot of these events over time, but Judy and Dee have been amazing. They've worked really closely with the mayor's office, and it's going to be a big event, probably the biggest one we've had on campus to date. So please come by. Next slide, please. President Mong did mention the new ranking this morning, but to be number 5 in the best 10 colleges in Texas, named by money.com, that's huge. So I think we just give ourselves a round of applause because that's a big deal. We've also, I mentioned the media coverage, but specifically, if you haven't had a chance, Dean Epps might get me, but please go down and see the 1963 exhibit. It is amazing, amazing, amazing. One of our big points of pride in the beautiful building that's down there, and we're getting a lot of attention from the media around that. Also, Good Morning Texas covered the Conrad program, and I would just share with you that DeMarcus Ware came down to be our keynote speaker for that program, and it was an extraordinary event. He really poured into our students, and he spent time taking photos with us. Thanks to Trina Terrell for bringing DeMarcus to us, but he really had a lot of positive things to say about UNT Dallas, and we look forward to doing more with him, just as we've done with Emmett Smith down at the Innovation Center at 4315 Lancaster. Many of you know that we have the mobile food bank. The North Texas Food Bank is here with us today. Some of you probably encountered as you drove up to the campus to see their work, and President Mong mentioned earlier that there would be coverage, national coverage about the North Texas Food Bank relationship. So that's really exciting. Next slide, please. I just wanted to share some of the names of the foundations who've contributed to us in the last year. We've had really some extraordinary new relationships that we formed, and the great work of PIC, of our Caruth Police Institute, and others have really caught the attention of some high top donors, and we're excited that we will continue our relationship with Wipro in phase 3. So Dr. Narayan, thank you again for your work on that. I'd also like to thank Dr. Lisa Hobson, who's worked on these 2 new relationships that we have as well. And one I can't mention the name of the foundation, but you'll see a little later that we received a 7-figure gift donation for the work that we did to write that grant. So the next slide, in partnership with Helen Giddings, many of you know that we support the Women's Leadership Summit called WLS. Many of you have heard me talk about it, heard the president talk about it, but WLS is a leadership program for African American women to help them connect with other women who are top of their game, and then reach back and support young women who are college age or new to their professions. And so it's sort of a mentorship program, but a weekend for us to get together and enjoy many women from all over the world who are top of their game. So we had Mayor Broom, who was Baton Rouge's mayor, was one of our keynote speakers. We were featured on WFAA for our relationship with Daryl McKissick, who has designed, was the designer architectural firm for not just the Pentagon before 9/11 and afterwards, but also has designed the MLK Memorial and the Smithsonian Museum. So kudos to the Honorable Helen Giddings for her work in helping us to raise more than $100,000 to put on that conference. It was an amazing conference, and you can see some of the sponsors there. President Mong, Provost Stewart, Dr. Brosset, and other UNTD principal investigators met with Dr. Brian Gladue and the HSC team to really talk through ways in which we could improve the Institutional Review Board, or IRB, relationship. And many of the faculty expressed that they wanted to see the relationship move in a different direction because of some of the challenges with the human subject and IRB process. And I'm pleased to report that we had a really, really great meeting with Dr. Gladue and his team. They have offered to assist us, our faculty and staff, with reviewing their IRB submissions beforehand so that we have fewer challenges with the process. So I couldn't be more pleased with the outcome, and we am pleased to report did sign for renew our relationship with the IRB earlier this week. So the North Texas Regional IRB will continue to serve as our IRB provider. I'm also pleased to share that Dr. Brosset and her team have submitted 43 proposals totaling more than $38 million this year, and we received 32 awards that exceed $8 million. That's historic for our university. And just a few to note that are not included in the total, so this will take us over the $10 million grant awards this year. We competed for the Upward Bound traditional math and science programs that we've historically had for the 6 years I've been here. We've had them 5 of those years. And I'm speaking that into existence. Nakia Douglas runs that program and does an amazing job. But thank you, Nakia, for your work on that. We also were awarded the Mcnair Post-Baccalaureate Achievement, $1.3 million over 5 years for that award. And we received $1.6 million, or up to $1.6 million, that we can bill for scholarships that we will announce soon, probably in the next week. We formalized the agreement this week, but it's one of Texas's largest philanthropic foundations, so we received that award this week. And finally, today, we received word, Mr. President, that we will be awarded our first talent search grant for $1.3 million over 5 years from the U.S. Department of Education. Congratulations to you all who have helped us to achieve this success, and thank you. Have a wonderful school year.
Good morning, everyone. I have shared my over 50 ailments also, but here we are. And I was going to, I was talking with Chancellor Williams earlier for just a moment, and I said, they say the best for last, except HR is not last, and we are all doing great things else we would not have achieved the successes you've heard about today. And so I want to talk with you today about how we've continued to align HR to support you in the growth. All of the new faculty and staff we welcomed, HR has played a role in that, and we continue to support you. And so I will share with you today how we have aligned ourselves with our new team members, and just reminding you of who your current HR team members are. So next slide. So your HR business partner and benefits representative is Tina Robinson. Tina. For compensation, we have Vanessa Rosas. HR generalist, Sylvia Littleton. Your senior HR business partner, compensation and policy management is Chancellor Henderson. She's not here with us today. Next slide. And then another senior HR business partner and performance management representative is Sherelle Shaw. Organizational development and engagement, Dr. Sean Treat. And then for talent acquisition, we have two team members. Clearly our growth, we're sustaining growth, and we are here to continue to support that in all ways, but we have two talent acquisition members, Jennifer Contreras and Elizabeth Armenta Saavedra. Next slide. Also, as we really try to support, as Dr. De Silva mentioned, our student growth is critical. And any way in which we can help not just faculty and staff, but with students, we do that. We mentor, and we have a new HR student assistant, Carla Cruz. And then Dr. Donna Asher's here. We are co-leading the CHR, Chief Human Resources Officer position, so that I can transition at some point, although I hope you will still have me, but I'm still here to do my ABC of diversity, equity, and inclusion work. But Donna's going to share with you a brief update on the search.
Good morning. Thank you, Wanda. Wanted to provide you an update on where we are with the Chief Human Resources Officer search. We see from all the great work you're doing, all the great people that have been added to the team, how critically important this role is. And one of the reasons why I wanted to co-lead this with Wanda is certainly not that she's not capable of it, but yes, we need her to start focusing on more of her DE&I functions. But I wanted to get a sense of this campus, of the people, of how you operate. So I wanted to be a part of this because it'll make it easier for us to find the best replacement for Wanda in this role. And Wanda, thank you again for the support you provided to this campus. But we're on the tail end of the search. So that's fantastic news. I want to first thank the individuals who are members of the UNT Dallas campus who served on the search committee, Dr. Don Remmers, Dr. Jose De Silva, and Kevin Rocha. Thank you guys, you did great work. They brought forward a slate of 4 talented individuals, got that last week, so we are vetting that, hoping to bring that down just a little bit to have folks come to campus. And President Mong and I will talk through who the finalist is going to be, but we certainly want all of your feedback. So you're going to hear more information in the very, very near future. We want to have various constituencies meet with the candidates who are brought to campus. So we look forward to wrapping this up as quickly as possible. So I thank you all in advance for your participation, and thank you for your support of the Human Resources Office. Thank you.
I think one of the highlights of the last academic year occurred in this room, where leadership at UNT Dallas welcomed the additional human resources staff who are now populated just down the hall from my office. And it was a great event. And I think we reminded each other of how important good HR is and how good teamwork, how important good teamwork is. I mentioned a couple of surveys that have come out recently, very favorable to us. But I wanted to talk just briefly about U.S. News and World Report and their very famous, sometimes often controversial rankings. Reason I bring it up, over the years, we've really not been able to really penetrate into the depths of the folks who make the decisions and really understand the data that they're looking for. Through the help of Yolanda Franklin and Dr. Monica Williams and others in our marketing department, we got to Robert Morse and spent a couple hours with him to understand how to fully populate the survey. Dr. Kim Chandler, one of the chairs of our strategic planning committee, and Shanae Yoon did yeoman's work to follow up on that meeting and with their team to present for the first time in our history a comprehensive filled out survey for them to review. I think everybody has an opinion on U.S. News. Some don't like it, some embrace it. Some have been humiliated by trying to game the system. Our goal was to just do it right. And Kim and Shanae and the team presented a precise and fully vetted submission. Our hope is that UNT Dallas will appear in the rankings in a much more complete and expansive way. If you look at the report now, there are, you know, we do get some best college rankings, but in the often heavily reviewed by parents sections, we have a very small piece of that. So thanks to Kim and Shanae and their team for their hard work. U.S. News also ranks America's 200 law schools. And so we'll be ready as a fully approved, strong day and night law school. We'll present a really comprehensive package. So I know all of you have, know about U.S. News. I just wanted you to know we approached it in a new, fresh, and aggressive way this year. I think the featured guest today is our Chancellor, Dr. Michael Williams. I will not spend 2 minutes introducing him. I just want to remind those of us who were here a couple months ago when he addressed our University Executive Council, our deans, our administration, our non-academic department heads, other leaders on campus. It was a very personal interaction. Dr. Williams talking about who he was, where he came from, the different challenges that he's tackled in his long and distinguished career. Today we're going to talk about his vision for the system. So Dr. Williams, thank you for attending our session today and your staff, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Bob. I was sitting here thinking, I thought back in about a story that came to me that I've never forgotten. Back in the late 80s, I was doing a fellowship at the Texas Heart Institute with Dr. Cooley's team, and every Wednesday at the Heart Institute was Pediatric Day. And on Pediatric Day, patients would come from all over the world, and they would bring their children and seeking cardiac surgery on their children for life-saving surgeries that they desperately needed and could get very few other places. So Wednesday was always a little challenging day because dealing with infants and neonates and doing heart operations on, bodies this big presents all kinds of challenges. But something happened on one particular day that I'll never forget. And so our routine was we would often get to meet with the family the night before, because as an anesthesiologist, that's That was my role. But oftentimes families didn't arrive till late, and we had to see them the next morning. So as we were going through our beginning our morning, the routine was to go in the operating room, set up everything with the team, get everything ready. And then my job was to go out and talk to the parents and get the baby. Many of these babies had heart disease that was so severe that even crying would cause them to turn blue because they had deformities that did not allow their heart to get fully oxygenated or their body to get fully oxygenated. So we developed a system by which we would just go out and give the baby an injection in the thigh right through their hospital gown. The first thing we did was we'd tell the mother this is about to happen. And then we would come back out there and make it. And so when we do that, we're going to quickly take the baby and we're going to go away because the baby can't stand the stress of going through separation from you. If that happens, we could have a really serious issue. So most of them complied and it was not a problem. On this particular day, it was the very first case of the day. We always started at 7 in the morning. And I walked out as I always did. I'd already introduced myself. I had my syringe in my hand. And I went to give the syringe in the baby's leg, give the injection. And right as I did, the mother grabbed my arm. And when she did, she said, I just want to tell you one thing. He's all I've got. Because in the last 2-3 years, I've lost my husband and our other child in a motor vehicle accident. So whatever you do, bring him back to me. So with that laid on you, I proceeded with the injection, took the baby, walked away. But I got to tell you, I was never the same. The reason I was never the same was because she taught me a lesson that I've never forgotten. And that lesson is this. If someone that never knew me met me 5 minutes before I was about to take the most precious thing in their life away, and with, can you imagine how much trust that took? How many of us give that much trust to someone that we meet in 5 minutes? But that was the situation. And as I grew through my years in medicine and began changing more to leadership in healthcare and then leadership in higher ed, that lesson never left me because I thought, my gosh, if that lady, that mother could trust a stranger that much, why can't we have organizations that have trust? And then in that day-to-day world, in those operating room worlds, the safety that comes through that environment comes from one thing and one thing only. It comes from a teamwork level and a system of collaboration and trust among the team. So you're going to hear me talk a lot about, for a few minutes, about trust and collaboration. Because that's how I think we change the UNT system, the campuses, UNT Dallas, UNT, the Health Science Center, the one in Frisco, to something that no one's ever seen before. This is not about being like everybody else in higher ed. I don't like checking peer reviews around other higher ed institutions. I like to know what we can do as a team because we have a lot of great people. So I want to start with that, and I want to just take a few minutes and just give you some thoughts to ponder on maybe. We have a board of regents who determines much of our direction. I will tell you they are 100% behind where we're going. They're 100% ready, as we are all ready, for less silos, less I'm at Dallas or I'm at UNT or I'm at Fort Worth, and more how can we come together? Because at the end of the day, when we just went through the recent McChrystal survey, we found that the number one thing that stands out in our whole system are the high quality of our people. And second to that are how much they're mission driven around the mission of the student and the student having success. So I don't know how many of you have been in other organizations where it was miserable, but I can tell you I have. I've also been in ones that were not miserable, that were great, that I didn't want to leave. And they all had one thing in common: people that were dedicated to the mission. People that were dedicated to serving others. And serving others in the healthcare world, that's patients and families. In higher ed, it's got to be students and families. And likewise, we have to serve each other. We have to treat each other like we respect and care about each other, so that we can all better take care of the students. So the regents are highly supportive of this. We just had two new regents join us. The student regent, Andy McDowell from UNT. That kind of rotates around every year. And UNT Dallas had one last year that just rotated off. And then we had a new regent from Houston, Lindy Reedman. We also talked a lot about the McChrystal report. The McChrystal is a consulting group that has done a lot of work. Many of you participated in the recent survey. And that survey came out and showed us lots of information. But the main thing it showed us was that we have great people, they're mission driven. And when it talked about what do we really need to work on, the biggest number one thing was communication. Our system did not have systems of communication. And when you don't have communication, you don't have trust. If you can't understand what's going on, it's hard to collaborate. It's hard to have trust. So we're working hard on communication. And one of the things I want to hear from many of you at some point is do you like to be communicated to? And how do you want to communicate back? Because communication is communication. It's not a monologue. I'm not here to just talk one way. It's a both directions here. So I wanted to talk about that for a second. So communication was number one. Number two was strategy. The UNT system has never had a strategy. We've had plans that were a bunch of PowerPoints that were mostly gathered up from all the campuses, but there's never been a collective strategy of us working together to form a strategy. And so how I envision that working is not the way it usually works in organizations, which is the top decides what it's going to be and it's pushed down to everybody else. In this environment, it needs to start at the campuses and come up this way. So that our job is to make sure we're helping the campuses achieve their goals. So that work will begin a little later in the fall, and many of you will be asked to participate in that, and you'll be asked to participate as the plan gets developed, and then all of us have a role in making sure we get the things done on the plan to get to our goals. So that was one thing I wanted to talk about for a second. I think you hear me talk about it a lot. Bob mentioned it earlier, I think. I'm a huge believer in working and living in and creating values-based organizations. Every single one of us, if you think for just a minute, who spent time investing in you in your growing up? It was most likely who had the big influences on you, who gave you your values. Each of us have a set of values, even though we've never stopped to identify them, maybe. But those values were given to us by either a coach, a teacher, a parent, a grandparent, a minister, whoever. But when you're real clear on what your values are, then it's really understandable why you'd want to be in an organization to work at every day that has values that align with yours. But we've never fully identified the values of the system. So we're going to do some work with that. And if you think about what does a values-based organization do for you, I wrote down some thoughts here. It gives you a true sense of one team. It gives you a sense of how to engage, support, and unify with each other. Because think about it for a second. We're all living with the same values. My guess is because most of you here are strongly committed to the students and their families in these communities. But therefore, the values here are pretty aligned, whether they've been identified fully or not, or you've identified yours. So when we have that, we can engage with each other easily. We can get a sense of unity. It's a whole lot easier to attract and retain talent. When people know they're coming into a high values place. It allows for a lot easier achievement of excellence in our education, our research, and our philanthropy. Above all, though, with a common purpose, a common mission, and a common set of values, it gives us a sense of unity. And that's extremely important. I don't know how many of you ever worked at a place where there was unity, but you don't ever want to leave it. And what you start to see are there are pipelines of people that when they hear the word, they want to find a way to work there if they can. I've seen this in my past life. I've seen it. I've worked in those places. I've been a part of that. You never want to go back to something that's not that way. I promise you. So if we're talking about a values-based culture, we're always moving forward. And so we recently talked about a vision for the future. Visions need to have a timeline, so there's a sense of urgency. Our vision is set to 2026. By 2026, the UNT system, and when I say system, I'm not talking about 1901 Main Street, downtown Dallas. I'm talking about all of us as a group of people. By 2026, the UNT system would be one team working together, values-based, customer-oriented, customer-focused, seeking to find excellence, curiosity, and innovation in everything we do. So what does that look like for you all? You heard Arthur come up here and give us a fantastic presentation. It wasn't any news anybody probably wants to hear, but the reality is he did a great job, and that's a hard message to deliver. You heard Jose come up here and talk about the need for collaboration around the student success and student recruitment. And you heard Monica talk about the things that are already going on here, and all I could think of was how much things could even accelerate further if she knew she had everybody here, much like Jose talked about, helping recruit out in the world, even a grocery store. So that's what a team starts to look like. So, and when we're talking about curiosity and innovation, it means you look at your own job every day. I guarantee you, how many of you every day, and you don't have to raise your hands, but how many of you every day going through your work day, I promise you, maybe not every day, but at least once or twice a week go, oh my gosh, this could be so much better if somebody would just listen to me, show them how to do this. Okay? Anybody ever done that before? You can raise your hands. Okay. So I'm telling you right now, I'm empowering this whole group to look at your areas as you identify ways. I guarantee you Arthur would appreciate it. He doesn't want you just hiring more people. He wants you to look at ways to where you can cut out the waste of the day. And look, we're up here just trying to get it together. We depend on all of you to tell us how it ought to really work. Because you're the ones that sit there and do it and know the ways it could get improved. So it's going to be very dependent that each of you participate in this process to let us know how things can be done better. That's what I mean by innovation. I don't mean invention. I mean innovation. I mean looking at what is currently going on, how can it work better. So have curiosity about things. Have curiosity about how can we recruit students better. How can I be a part of raising funds to support this university? What can I do in my daily job to make this be the better place? Overall, the way I see our goals for higher ed, and right now we're in a time of the world where higher ed is being looked at and questioned as to what its value really is. We see corporations all the time starting their own degree programs. We see more and more challenges with the for-profit environments at a time when we're seeing the personal side of things, which is a harder world to live in. with inflation, with the other stresses of daily life, and the other economic challenges we're seeing. So this is a time more than ever to come together and stand for what we all believe in, where we show up, where we work every day. That there is high value here, that we can deliver value to the students. So for me, it's affordability. Therefore, we have not raised tuition across the system on average for the last 7 years. I can tell you at the Health Science Center, we have not raised tuition in the 10 years I've been there. We find other ways to keep the cost burden off the backs of the students. I hate student debt. I think what's happened in this country with some of the corporate approaches to these students has put them in really serious binds. But it's our job too to see what we can do to lessen the burden by how we manage the way we do our work. So we announced to the board there'll be no tuition raises across the UNT system this coming year. That makes it harder for guys like Arthur, my friend Greg Anderson. However, we will do what we got to do to take care of the university. Whatever that means. If that means we have to do something different next time, we will. I can tell you what we did at the Health Science Center. We looked for ways to create new streams of revenue. Not off the backs of students with just tuition. That's way too easy. People ask me, what about coming back to work and what about merit raises and those things? I'm a guy that believes in empowering the leadership of the campuses. This is not a benevolent dictator thing. I'm here as part of the team. I'm here to be a servant. So Arthur and your leadership and Bob and your leadership team here decide what they need to do in that environment. I'm not here to dictate when people come back to work. I will tell you one thing though. I am convinced, and I can speak to this as a physician, that what COVID did to this country caused a level of mental and psychological trauma that we really have not fully identified yet. And that's the kind of thing that's sneaky. You don't see it, you don't understand it, but it's real. You think about ever since the maybe the time you were 5 years old, 6 years old, what was the deal with people who wore masks? They were bandits, right? They were bad people. Anybody who wore a mask was up to something bad. All of a sudden, and this is not a political statement for mask or not mask, this is just talking about the psychology of what happened to us. We're told to go to our homes. We're told to put masks on. There's a trauma there, and we have to be sensitive to that. So it's not a time for me to tell you we're going to force everybody back. I will just tell you this though. The longer we go without being together, the more damage it is on our culture as a group of people. People want to be with people. People need to be with people. And so that's my stake on, it's not a statement on work or remote work or any of that. It's just a statement on where we are, I think, as a society and what I think we need to think about in the UNT system. So I just think those are important things I want you to know. And then lastly, I wanted to share, I get asked all the time, well, what does really a values-based culture mean? What does that look like? So this is exactly what I shared with the board. That way it'll save you having to go through watching the live stream, which is extremely boring. Values-based cultures do these things. There's high trust. Remember the mother I just talked about? There's high trust. In order to have trust, you have to give it in order to receive it. And then it's sustained and grown through repetitive experiences with each other. But you got to give it first. You don't wait until you're just going to watch and see. So there's high trust. We preach at the Health Science Center that we have the 4 C's of hiring. If I could just get the HR people to work with me on this, it would work really well. That's for you, Wanda and Donna. 4 C's of hiring, and they go like this, and they're in this order. We hire first and foremost for character. We hire next to see, is that individual a culture fit for us here? Do they believe in what we're doing? Third is, can they fit in the chemistry of the team they're going to be on? Is that team going to accept them? And fourth, guess what? And last is competency in the job you're hiring for. Because we can train competency, but I can't train character. So when we start changing how we hire and how we look at people and look at resumes in one eye, but at the same time have a conversation about what are your values. Tell me how you've led with your values. Tell me how you respond to other people. And one of the best things you can do for executives is to go out to dinner with them, watch them how to treat the wait staff. Because there's been many executives that look really great on paper. I took them to dinner and we were done after about the first 10 minutes. So high trust, hiring for character. There is no more we versus them. There is no more UNT versus UNT Dallas or HSC or any of that. We're going to look at how the resources that we have and how we can help each other. And that's why, as Betty was talking about, we are hungry at the HSC to find ways to start collaborative programs with you all. We've talked at Denton about starting collaborative programs. If we're going to start with our medical school or our other professional health care schools, if we wanted to start an MBA, why would we do that? We could go to Denton and get it right now, and then when you have one, we'll get one from you. We don't need to do that. We got so many resources inside this system that if we will work together, the synergy is scary. The unleashed power of the team would be unbelievable. But we've never experienced that in UNT system. So when there's no we them, there's no silos. There are areas of specialty and areas of special interest and special teaching. We have all that. The departments don't go away. I'm not talking about all that. What I'm really talking about is there are some structural silos that have to stay in place, but we create porous walls between us. So we interact with each other, we collaborate. There's open sharing of information, why I'm so adamant about developing a whole new communication platform that we're working on, and that will work with your teams as well. So we have open access to information. It's a people-first culture. When on the McChrystal survey, it kills me when I hear that our people feel like they're not truly cared for in the system. That is something we have to change. And people that's not something you give a bunch of words to. You have to have words and then action about how we show people we care for them. And it's not always paying the highest money. And it's not always giving the most time away. A lot of times it's just stopping with somebody and saying, what's going on with you? How are you doing? What can I do to help you? We celebrate each other. You guys have so much great stuff going on here. It was unbelievable. And a lot of that stuff on the early part of it doesn't take care of the financials. But if it's sustained over time, it will take care of the financials. I promise you. So we need to celebrate each other. And lastly, I think from the way we treat each other and the way we treat our customers, being, in my opinion, students and their families. You know, I used to be told, well, higher ed doesn't think they have any customers. I said, man, I'll tell you what, when I was paying my daughter's tuition, I can tell you I was a customer. And I made sure they knew I was a customer. So we have customers. We have each other as internal customers. We have students and families as external customers. We have vendor partners that are customers. So we need to treat our customers, I think, with what I call the platinum rule. Have you ever heard of the platinum rule? You people? So the golden rule we were all taught in elementary school says, or Sunday school says, with the golden rule, I'm going to treat everybody else like what? Like I want to be treated. The platinum rule says, I'm going to treat everybody else like they want to be treated. Because guess what? In this day and age, not all of us want to be treated like Michael Williams wants to be treated. So, and guess what you got to do if you're going to execute the platinum rule? You got to understand the people a little bit. But what are they going to need? So you get to know the families, you get to know the students. And lastly, and this is a pet peeve of mine, I've spent the last 11 years of my life in the UNT system as a Board of Regent member and then as a president. We play way too small here. We don't play big. We play on the little league field. I'm sorry, I'm a baseball guy. We play on the little league field. We don't play on the big league field. We come hat in hand. Please, sir, I feel like I'm in a Christmas Carol when I'm in the legislature sometimes. Please, sir, can I have some crumbs? We're not going to play that way anymore. We're done with that. It's no more crumbs. We want to be at the buffet table. So, as a result of that, this year we're changing governmental relations. The team you heard about earlier, and this is just a start. For the first time in the whole time I've been here, we hired an entire federal lobby group that's going to take us to the federal level. There's so much money at the federal level that you guys, none of us have tapped into for years. There's opportunities everywhere in all kinds of research, non-research. So that's just an example. But we're not going to play small. So we're going to play big. And sometimes when you play big, you get knocked down, but then you get right back up. That's another thing in this system. We have not had a history here of being okay to fail forward, and learn from it. So I'm going to wrap up with this. Conversation I had with one of the what I call landscapers, the groundskeepers, you know, whatever they call themselves these days. I can't keep up with all the terminology, but he was trimming the hedges at the Health Science Center one of my very first days. And I went up to him and talked to him and got to know him a little bit. And about 3 months later, we brought the landscaping crew in, gave them an award for that year being the top educators on campus. Because what we taught them is, whether you're a police officer on campus, whether you're a custodial person, whether you're a person in line like Rose over here serving food to us this morning, you're an educator. Because you're in the business of preparing an environment where it's safe to have education. So as soon as we can get across to each other on our campus that every single one of us are educators, every single one of us carry the responsibility and the burden of that student and their family, we will get to a whole new level. So here's the last thing I'll leave you with. We're going to be coming back around for listening tours in September and October. And those are listening tours, not mic talking tours. So I'm going to want to hear from you. This is communication. So that's coming. In the meantime, you can get a hold of me at chancellor@untsystem.edu. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear about how you want to be communicated with. And then the last thing I'm going to say is I want to go back to the story I started with. So that's this. Think about for a second what happens in an operating room. You've seen it on TV if you've never been in it. Patient comes in the room, there's only one patient. Everybody's around that patient. When I used to do a lot of ICU work, same thing. We'd make rounds in the ICU, we'd round as a group. I'd have a nurse, I'd have a physical therapist, I'd have a respiratory therapist, a pharmacist with me because they're smarter than I am in that space about certain things, and they can tell me the best way to care for that patient. But the bottom line is, we were all around what? The patient. So I want us to start thinking about the student and their family in the middle of all that. And let's surround them with everything we bring to the table as to how we change their success, their experiences to a much higher level than they came in here expecting. Thank you very much today. I really appreciate you all. I think they wanted me to leave some time for questions, and so we got time, maybe. If it's a really hard one, I'm going to put it off and tell you I can't answer it today.
So I'll remind our in-person audience, if you have a question, please simply raise your hand and a runner will bring a mic to you.
So the baby did great. The baby, we reversed the flow of the heart, and the baby got oxygen after that, and ultimately, you know, after the baby was discharged from the hospital, I didn't never see him again because they came from another part of the world, but baby did okay from what we did. But thanks for asking. That'd been a bad story if it didn't go well, right?
Okay, we have a question online. It asks, what initiative is the university considering to keep employees since we are experiencing a high turnover rate in certain departments?
Well, I'll speak to the whole Great Resignation thing for a second. I think the Great Resignation, in my opinion, it's only my opinion, it's not worth anything more than that, but ties back to what I spoke about the COVID and trauma. You had people quitting really serious high-dollar jobs, going to work at Starbucks. There were people that were questioning what their life was going to be like going forward. And I think we're going to be in a phase for a while, from a psychological behavioral trauma status, to where we're going to have a lot of this flux back and forth, I believe. But I think the question is, how do we retain and attract? I think we first retain and attract by building a culture where people want to be there, and they're honored and they're rewarded and recognized. We may not be able to reward them with dollars, but we can recognize them. And if you look at any employee engagement data, over and over and over, the main thing was people want to be recognized. They want to be allowed to do the work they're trained to do. And people don't leave organizations. A lot of you aren't going to like what I'm about to say, but people don't leave organizations because of pay. They usually leave organizations because of their supervisor. And so if their supervisor is paying attention, is engaging with them, is understanding what they need, oftentimes many of those situations can turn around. If you haven't read it, there's a great book. It's several years old now, but it's called Drive by Daniel Pink. It will tell you over and over with repeated data. We're all kind of data junkies in higher ed, but where people are not, money is about third or fourth. It's how am I treated? Do you let me do my work? Is it the work I came trained to do? You know, we got another issue, and I'll say one last thing here on that question. You know, when people are hired to do a job, but then we end up having them do other jobs, and their job description in the end doesn't meet a thing that they're doing, that causes discontent. So there's a whole lot of things we can do to deal with this without it causing Arthur a stroke on more money. So, another question? Or? Yes, sir.
My question was for Arthur. Is that
Arthur?
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Faculty or travel, is faculty travel to conferences considered essential or?
That would be essential.
Gotta be more questions than that.
We have another virtual question.
Okay.
There has been much talk about enrollment, which is important to all of us. Yet the product of the university, any university, is education. How does the administration intend to improve the actual education offered by the university, looking beyond enrollment as the sole objective?
Great question. So I just had this conversation with our Board of Regents this past Thursday and Friday. The whole time I've been here, there's been this hardline push from former chancellors and board members to raise enrollment, raise enrollment, raise enrollment, raise enrollment. What you see, though, when you start just pushing for only numbers, is the quality can go down. So what I'm pushing the Board of Regents to consider is, hey, look, I'm not interested in high quantity as much as I'm interested in high quality. So how do we look at I do know this, when you're more selective about the students you bring in, you end up attracting, and the faculty in here may argue with me, but this is something I'm come firm to believe, you attract better faculty when they can teach better students. So the point is at some point we have to look at balancing how we serve our community and how we maintain quality. So from me, you're not going to hear drive enrollment. You're going to hear drive quality and how we define quality of education.
Our next question asks, does development have any plans to raise money for academic programs, particularly for improvement of the library to secure minimal research materials? In many disciplines, theory is in books, not in online resources.
Well, I'll make it up, but you don't need to go anywhere, Monica.
Thank you. Yes, part of what President Mong and I spend our time doing is identifying first donors who will contribute. And it's difficult to identify when you don't have a large alumni base that has the resources to give monetarily, and being a new university, many of foundations, corporations like to see alumni giving rates first. And so we do have a plan to address that through Derek and Tiffany. They're reaching out and beginning to ask alumni for support. It doesn't have to be a large monetary amount of support, but we need to have something. We need to be able to say this percentage of our alums give back, and then we can make a case for support in some of those areas. But when you go to foundations and corporations specifically, there are things that they will fund. And so we look towards the partnership between your individual schools, the college, the library, to help us with writing grants so that we can, seek more funds. And that's why Lisa Fields is here, is so that she can help us hone in on some of those areas where we need more resources. Yeah.
Yeah, let me, Dr. Williams and her team have done a remarkable job, along with our faculty, to increase funding from foundations and nonprofits. It was a record year. The market, we haven't cracked, and I don't think we're going to yield a lot yet, unless we're incredibly lucky, from alums for probably another few years. We have 9,000 of them plus, and we're communicating with them. But look at what SMU yields from their alums. It's extraordinary. We don't have that. Our next frontier is in philanthropy. And if those of you who maybe were on the UT San Antonio campus 15 years ago, and then you visit it today, it bears no resemblance to what it was before. Now, probably 35 years ago, they were probably about where we are now. And the head of the UT system was constantly on the inaugural president's back. Why can't you raise more money from high net worth individuals in San Antonio? Well, he was trying. He was trying. He did the same thing we did. He excelled on the grant side until finally, it was none of the big names in San Antonio. It was a rancher, he called her a lady rancher, who gave him $5,000 every year. They treated her like royalty, and one year she sent him $25 million. At that point, the Valeros of the world said, what is UT San Antonio? I'm getting all this money to Trinity, and UT, and A&M, and all of a sudden they started lining up. So it's going to happen here, I promise you. We're out there hitting the hustings every day. You know somebody, we'll go talk to them. And we're getting closer. We're getting closer, but that would be my answer. We need an honors college. We have presidential scholars. That's good. We got the first time 2 valedictorians from Dallas ISD. That's great. We need an honors college. If you look at the history of UT Dallas, they really didn't turn it around until 2 things happened. They got an honors college and they started attracting top students. I know Dr. Stewart and I and others, we see this science building, the STEM building, accelerating the excellent work we're already doing, growing our science programming. This building, I promise you, will be transformational. It's hard to stay out of the way of the hospital companies right now. You know, you're going to produce a lot of nurses for, I mean, that's all they're thinking about right now. But this will be transformational. And we're going to try to build off that, get an honors college.
Our next question asks, how will UNT system continue to support working parents? Currently, our policy allows unpaid leave for 12 weeks unless the employee has vacation, sick time, or pays into short-term disability.
We'll continue to follow our policies as they are, and it's something we have to continue to look at. I can just tell you what we did at the Health Science Center, and I think it helped relieve some of the burden anyway. There was no one solution that took care of all of it, but we formed a partnership with the Lena Pope Home in Fort Worth and opened what we call an Early Childhood Learning Center, and that allowed for the combination of child care plus, but we didn't want just a place where kids were babysat. We wanted a place where kids getting some early developmental training. So one thing I know Dr. Mong and I have talked about in the past was, I know he has strong interest in it, is how do we look at other opportunities to duplicate things like that? That's an example. I think there's a question way at the back.
Good morning. I wasn't for sure if it was morning or afternoon.
I hope it's morning.
I'm Garrison Henderson. I'm an adjunct. I've been an adjunct since 2014. And this semester, this is going to be my first semester actually teaching face-to-face on this campus. But I was listening to the town hall right outside on my phone. And one of the things that was mentioned about the increasing percentages of non-tenured faculty. So when you consider research-based institutions and teaching institutions, for example, community colleges, I do know historically some of the first faculty members at community colleges were actually high school teachers. But when you go to the research-based institutions, and there are variations as well among the research-based institutions, you have the extreme publish or perish, and then you have a combination of teaching, community service, and so forth. So my question would be, taking all this into consideration, can someone elaborate or give us some specifics about how non-tenured faculty would fit into that equation?
So I would like to address that and say that at UNT Dallas, we've made an agreement with the Board of Regents that only 50% of our faculty will be tenured or tenure track. So we have 50% of our faculty who will be non-tenured. And for us, we can't do the job that we do. We can't educate our students. We can't prepare them for life beyond the university without our non-tenured faculty. And so that's why I listed as one of my priorities this year, making sure we get a career path for our non-tenured faculty so that they are recognized as an important part of this institution, and that we celebrate the work that they do, and that we appreciate the work that they do by giving them promotions, steps, a trajectory for their careers. And we're going to try to make sure we do a good job of that. That's how I see the role of non-tenured faculty at UNT Dallas.
Our next question asks, what are the main reasons for this year's enrollment drop? Is it the shift from online back to face-to-face classes or competition from Dallas College?
I have several theories about it. Some of it's on us, some of it's, I think, in the environment. I think, number one, the outstanding job market allows for students to go right out of high school and into, again, when you look at household incomes, our families generally come from $30,000 to $40,000 a year. $20 an hour at Amazon looks awfully good. It's probably a short-term play. We also have, I think there are inflationary concerns that exist. If you look across the country, there's a market trend among regional universities and community college of declining enrollment. We have gone against that trend until this year. And that means the stuff that's on us is what Jose and Stephanie were talking about. We have to look at this differently. We need a stronger ground game. We need to get into the high schools and community colleges more. But I do think the outstanding job market, the vestiges of COVID that Dr. Williams talked about, and the tentative environment that a lot of people are living in right now, and I think have contributed to this. Across the country, community colleges are down 8 to 10%. I know Dallas, we're not losing students to Dallas College particularly. We work closely with them. We understand them. We know they're down too, significantly. And so they want to work with us to we joint market with them. We send out letters of acceptance, but it's a complicated issue. I don't believe in making excuses. I believe in trying to, see things clearly. You heard Arthur talk about, it's important that we see things clearly. We can't change if we're not honest with ourselves about what the environment is. And we have to attack that environment. And we have a good story to tell. Otherwise, the foundations wouldn't be supporting us. The legislature shouldn't be supporting us. We need to rekindle interest among, the students that we serve. I think we need to expand our geography and attract a larger audience. I don't want to give out trade secrets. I think we know we have a plan to do that. And we have to, I think when Dr. Williams talks about the enterprise model, if you go to Love Field, DFW, just as one example, the marketing you see there is mostly UNT and Frisco. You don't hear about the Health Science Center. You don't hear about UNT Dallas. There's something wrong with that picture that can easily be fixed. That's nothing against UNT. It's just the way we've always done it. And I think there is more of an enterprise approach that would be good for everybody. We offer so much variety for students in this system. And I think a more holistic approach. I don't want to get ahead of the game, Dr. Williams, but
no, it's spot on.
I just, that's when I see enterprise, that's what I see as one example.
If we're all truly one part of one family that's around collaboration and trust, then everybody needs to be able to get what we can do for them. I think we got time.
Do we have one more?
Okay, our next question asks, are there any plans for private partnerships to bring affordable living options and more restaurants closer to campus?
Yes. So I alluded in my opening remarks to a lot of the noise that's been going on this summer about economic development in southern Dallas. There are no planned unit developments south of the Trinity River I-30. There are no transit-oriented developments. So Monica Williams and Michael Williams and I and others have been working hard to get the right kind of development around us. We're a greenfield. Think about it. We have a rail line. We're close to interstates. UNT Dallas is an oasis in a neighborhood. I don't know if you read the morning news. There was a great, yesterday, in fact, there was a great story focused on research by a SMU researcher that analyzed infrastructure and all the things that make up good and bad and mediocre infrastructure. Our neighborhood of the 14 council districts has the worst infrastructure in Dallas, except for guess where? Right here. Right here. And she looked at the last bond that was supposed to replenish infrastructure deserts. Mind you, District 8 is last. Guess who got the least amount of money from the 2017 bond? District 8. That's not aligned governance. And so we're here, to bang the drum. If you think I'm not going to talk to Mayor Williams about this when he's here next Saturday, I will. And I've been talking about it. So number one, we're a food desert, except for us. We're an infrastructure desert, except for us. And there's a housing desert, basically. And so we've been talking to 270 acres southeast of campus. People have been talking about that for years, developing it. A guy bought it, the guy who, Centurion Murdad Moed a few years ago, and he and the city could never get along. You talk about them versus us, that never could happen. So he goes and develops 1.1 billion project in Plano because he could work with Plano, and he's redeveloping the old Concrete Mall into a dynamic community. That should have happened right here, but the city and he could not get along. Michael Hogue of Hogue Global bought it, and now we're working with them. There was an article by a Bush Institute economist, Dr. Colin Clark, a couple weeks ago in the Morning News saying if development's going to happen, it's going to be because of UNT Dallas and things like Hogue Global, building housing, retail, hotel, fronting 20, and then housing that our faculty and staff, they can walk, and students ideally could walk to campus. That's what we're trying to do. No warehousing. I got a call from somebody from Kyers the other day, and they sent me saying, this is a medical building I'd like to build about half a mile down the road. On this side, north side of 20, I looked at it, and I don't care how you dress up the pig, it was a warehouse. And I said, we have no interest in supporting the warehouses, they keep them south of 20, not in our neighborhood. One of our friends, somebody that Dr. Williams, Monica Williams has cultivated, Terrence Maiden just bought Pettis Norman's property, 100 acres right over here, northwest corner of our campus, and he wants to put in a planned unit development. He's a high quality developer. Hogue's a high quality developer. If we can get that done, then this will be transformational. Now I'm talking to the schools with some of you. I talked to Dr. Rimley. How would you like a lab school near us? Pre-K to 8. We already have a blue ribbon school at Gillum. They took that from worst to best in just 7 years. partly because of the collaboration with us. That blue ribbon school needs pre-K to 8 to feed into it. So why do people move into a neighborhood? Because of good schools. And so somebody's got to have the guts to start it. UNT system had the guts to put a university here. It hasn't always been easy. We've had a good ride. This is a tough year. We'll get through it. But that's my answer to economic development in the area.
Exactly right.
Well, Dr. Williams, thank you so much. I mean, such a passionate, coherent message. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
All right.
Well, I think somebody's telling us it's time to go. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.